Back then, you didn't even know about the bad things happening, but it doesn't mean that there were less bad things happening. Hey guys, and welcome to this video by me, Lizzie. Today I want to talk about why things are always bad. Extreme right-wing parties are on the rise. Homosexuality is still sentenced in some countries. And there are still people living without electricity on this planet. It is human nature that when there are 99 positive things happening, that people will still always see that one negative thing. We see tragic pictures of war and suffering day by day in the news. Media is a big key point in our negative worldview. But is it really reality that everything is so bad? Of course, this video is not about showing you how negative the world is. It is more about giving you tools to understand why we always feel like that. And what you can do to change your thinking to see the world in a more positive view without confusing facts. Because recently I read this awesome book which is called Factfulness, and it is basically showing all of the things that are happening in this world and how we see them and how they actually are, proven by statistical data. So for the beginning I'll just pose you 3 questions, and the only thing you have to do is remember what kind of answers you would choose. In all low-income countries, how many girls finish primary school? How did the number of deaths per year from natural disaster change in the last 100 years? Where does the majority of the world population live? So those are the answers to the questions. Did you get it right? Tell me in the comments below. The really interesting thing about this book is that the author posed a set of 12 very similar questions to those to politicians, impactful leaders, journalists all over the world. And in average, the people he asked scored worse than random, which means less than 33% got it right. But it's weird, isn't it? If people just don't know the answer, then still their answers would be randomly correct. So you would have those 33% of people scoring right. But even when looking at countries' averages, you can see that all of those people score worse than 33%. That means that our thinking is influenced by something that makes us score wrong in those things. And this is exactly what the author took a look at. In his book, the author is showing key irritations that make us think in a certain way, and that's why we get the questions wrong. So I'm gonna show you some of the most important ones, in my opinion, to understand the world better. The negativity instinct. Bad news are always more likely to reach us. Things that are just gradually improving are not really newsworthy, but it doesn't mean that they are not happening. In the book, there is a lot of statistic data shown in graphics to prove how things are constantly improving. But still, at the same time, people assume that things are getting worse. But as a fact, that is not true. The reason why we feel like that is that there's also some other thing which is improving, which is that we have better surveillance of suffering. Because we have the technology, the resources, and the people to report even more things that are going on in the world, it doesn't mean that there are necessarily more things happening just because they are reported. Back then, you didn't even know about the bad things happening, but it doesn't mean that there were less bad things happening. Journalists who don't report about dramatic things would lose their job. So we should just see that things can be bad, but still better at the same time. The fear instinct. The reality in which you're living in is framed by your own filter and by the filters of media. That's why it's always good to become calm again before actually acting out. Commonly, fear instinct is triggered by physical harm, fear of contamination by dangerous substances, and also captivity. But the things we are most likely to fear are the things that are least likely to happen. Most terrible incidents that get a lot of exposure are the things that rarely happen. And at the same time, you can see them statistically decreasing. Looking at all those numbers and facts, you can see that those things are really unlikely to happen to exactly you. Generalization. Try to question categories, look for differences within a group and across groups. And always think about that vivid examples don't necessarily portray the general reality. This is one great example that the author is naming about seeing half-built houses in Tunisia. When looking at it, you might feel that it is disorganized or lazy or anything, but actually it is really clever. The problem for people living on low income levels there is that they don't have access to savings or loans, and that they also have a rising inflation. So because they cannot really afford to build a house all at once, they would just buy bricks every time they have the money for it. And why is that clever? because bricks can never lose their value and people also wouldn't be able to just steal them. So every time they can afford bricks, they can just start building their house even more and enable a better living for their family, which is super awesome. So sometimes it also helps you think out of categories and see things from a different perspective. Proportions. You need to compare numbers and situations to actually assess what kind of magnitude a thing has. Then you realize what's really threatening to you and what you should pay attention to. For example, the author is describing one day in Sweden where a hunter was attacked by a bear. It was reported in the media everywhere, but on the same day there was a woman killed by her ex-husband. And there was almost no coverage on that topic. That killing by a bear was the first incident since 1902 in Sweden, while those cases of women being killed by their partner happens every 30 days. So should we rather worry about the bears or domestic violence maybe? Urgency! It's an old instinct that we still have, although there's rarely urgency. So first ask for more time to think things through, and at the same time always see that you should be proven by data if you want to see that something is really urgent. In the book there's an example about a roadblock that was initiated because there might be a contagious disease in town. But because it was acted upon that urgency and the road was blocked, people couldn't get to the market anymore. So they were searching for other ways, which was taking the seaside, although they couldn't swim, which caused a lot of people to drown back then. So sometimes direct action can be worse than the actual thing that would have happened if you just would have looked into it more and then see what it really meant. So yeah, for me this book was a total enlightenment. I really loved it because it made me see that the world is not that bad, firstly, and also that I'm not wrong with being positive, because this is what is happening, and it's nothing about being optimistic, it's just realistic. After all, it is just data analysis, and it gives me so much hope to not always look towards news and be like, oh shit, there's so much shit going down again. And those mental tools he is presenting is really helpful to get the facts right. I can totally recommend to read the full book as well, because there are many more examples and also other tools that you might be interested in, so definitely check it out in the description, so I'll put the Amazon link there. If you're also interested in more of those educational book summaries, then let me know in the comments down below, then I would make more content like that. I hope you enjoyed this video. Check out my social media channels and my recent videos as well, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye!